Hi everybody, welcome back to Diaries of a Farmhouse. I'm Maddie. Hopefully this is focused. I haven't filmed in a really long time, but been kind of missing it, so I figured I'd sit down and talk about a plant that I really like, Pink Princess Philodendron. It used to be kind of a more rare plant. I think it could still be a little bit pricey depending on the variegation and like the age of the plant and such, but you can pretty much find them anywhere. You can sometimes find them at like box stores. I know I've seen them at like King Supers. You can find a lot of people selling them on Facebook Marketplace. I got mine from a local nursery. So let me show you what the plant looks like and then we'll dive on in. She's a little tall, so this is what mine's looking like right now. You can see there's some pretty highly variegated leaves. Some are not, but we are starting to get some of the bigger leaves here, and there's a new one here, and I'll talk about that one in a little bit. But this is her. I bought it for $35, I want to say, from that nursery, but it was, I mean, it had a couple leaves on it. It was quite a bit smaller, and when I bought it, I might have lost those first couple leaves, but they were more kind of like these bottom ones where there was a little bit less variegation, but it had variegation in the stem, so I was pretty confident that that would continue on to the more mature leaves. And I've been grateful to have some of these more highly variegated. There's a half moon there. It may revert. If it does, I'll try to cut it back and start it from the more highly variegated nodes. But this is her. This is what they look like. Very beautiful dark veins, like contrasting dark green with the kind of bright pink. Some of them just kind of have speckles on them. And it's one of my favorite plants. It definitely needs a moss pole. You can tell the nodes are kind of starting to reach out, the area roots. They're kind of looking for something to climb. So I need to get it on a moss pole, so hopefully it'll root into that and continue to grow and produce larger leaves. But for the time being, this is her. So the Pink Princess Philodendron is called the Philodendron arubescens. That's its scientific name. Native to the rainforests of South America. However, that it was not discovered in the wild. There's some conflicting stories. I guess I should start doing my makeup. About how this plant was discovered. The consensus was that it was discovered in the 1970s. Some sources I saw said that it was discovered in the wild. I don't believe that. The other two sources I found state that it was discovered in a Thai greenhouse by a chance hybrid creation. And from that we got the variegation that we have now. So this plant is a hybrid. I think that kind of creates some just minor issues that I'll talk about later. The sources just say that it was artificially created, so it could have purposely been bred to create this genetic mutation, but it could also have just been a chance hybrid creation in a greenhouse. These plants in 2018 really gained traction because of the pink leaves. They were kind of different, colorful, and unique, and I mean, like a lot of other plants in 2020, it took off. It was getting posted on social media a lot more often. Eyes were on it a lot more, and that's kind of when I got into plants around that time, and that's kind of when I noticed this plant, and I think I bought it 2021. It might have been later than that, I can't remember, but it is a stunning plant, and I could see why it gained a lot of attention on social media, and just in general. Let's talk about its growth patterns. So it can grow 3 to 4 feet tall. I would say it could be taller than that. Growing up moss poles or being staked up like I have it, it'll just continue to vine upward like a lot of other philodendrons. As far as width, it can be like 1 to 2 feet wide. And the leaves themselves can grow to 5 to 8 inches. So the Pink Princess philodendron, like I said, it used to seem like it was kind of a rare plant, something that was a little more expensive, kind of harder to get your hands on. Like I said, now you can kind of find it in a lot of places. I did see some posts about similar plants that have more pink on them that can produce like all pink leaves. They have more of a tendency to revert. The Pink Princess philodendron still has that tendency. It can most definitely revert like a lot of other variegated plants, but when choosing, and this goes kind of for all variegated plants, if you find something that is variegated and you're thinking of getting it, but you're nervous about it reverting and you're spending, I mean, even if you spend a little bit of money on it, you want something that's going to continue to produce those big, beautiful variegated leaves. So in this case, you can, like I said earlier, you can look at the vine and see if the pink variegation, or if you're choosing something else, you want the variegation to be in the stem because it has a higher likelihood of producing that genetic mutation and variegation in its more mature leaves. So if you see one and the bottom leaves may not have a lot of variegation, and you're worried about it reverting, and you look at the stem and there's very little to no variegation in the stem, the likelihood of it reverting is quite a bit higher. So you might wait until you can find something that you're a little more confident will continue the variegation. So when you get your Pink Princess philodendron home, its care is pretty much the same as any other philodendron. You're going to want bright and direct sunlight. Direct sunlight can scorch the leaves. So let me grab this one and show you, because there are a few leaves that do appear to have a little bit of sun scorch on them. This plant has also had pests in the past, so some of that too is from pests, but I'll show you kind of what it looks like. There's one. I also have a bi window, so this could also be from it getting too cold as well. So if you look at this leaf here, that appears to be some sun scorch. It also has a little bit on this side too, if you can see that. So I keep it in that spot because it's continuing to grow and kind of growing out of, ooh, it's going crazy. Stay. It's kind of growing out of the direct sunlight, so it's not getting as scorched, and I kind of moved it off to the side a little bit, so that has helped. It'd probably do really well. I shouldn't say it probably would. It will do well under a grow light, where it's getting an ample amount of the light it needs, but it's not in danger of getting that sun scorch, or like the temperature scorch from being in the window. If, like mine, where it kind of started out with not a whole lot of variegation, sometimes putting it in not direct sunlight, but in a brighter lit situation, when putting it in a brighter lit situation, it can produce more variegation, and that's kind of, it has the potential to. I shouldn't say that all of them will do this, but it has the potential to encourage more variegation in your plant. So, but I wouldn't put it obviously in direct sunlight, but a grow light would probably encourage a lot more variegation because it has more consistent light and more light than the light that it needs, unless you can put it in something like a south-facing window where it's going to get the 6+ hours of sunlight that it needs, but no direct sunlight, but just enough to encourage variegation and encourage growth. You want it to stay warm as well, and humid. So a lot of my plants they don't grow as fast, and they tend to get crispy leaves here and there because I have not yet invested in a good humidifier. I do have a couple, but they're not like super great. I will tag them down below. They work. They're good. They're good if your plants are kind of clustered together, but they do run out of water fairly quick. So that's the only downside. Oh, my powder's not open. Where you place your plant can also impact how much water it's going to need. So, oh, look at this. I didn't even cover that up. Oh, well. So like a lot of other philodendrons, they are prone to getting root rot when they have too much water, or their soil stays soggy for too long. I'm kind of falling into, I used to plant directly into pots, and I still do sometimes, but I'm kind of at a point where I like to encourage nursery pots. A lot of other plant enthusiasts talk about planting in the nursery pots, and then just using cover pots so that you know that your plant is draining the way it's supposed to. And you can kind of monitor the roots a little bit better, especially if you use clear pots. You can see how the root growth looks and how much moisture is in your soil. So this might be a good plant for that, where you can put it in a clear pot, put it in its correct soil medium, and kind of watch it and make sure that it's draining as it should. If it sits in water too long or soggy soil, you'll encounter root rot. I believe I have made a video about that. If not, I can do one. I used to be really bad about overwatering my plants. Now it's kind of the opposite. But just I could talk about some signs to look for, typically, like leaf discoloration, kind of a foul smell. You might notice more pests in your soil than usual, fungus gnats, mold, that kind of thing. I don't want to say that all mold is bad, because it's not, but it is kind of a sign that your soil is staying damp for too long. So those are some signs that you might be overwatering your Pink Princess Philodendron, and that you need to kind of cut back and check on those roots. So typically when watering your Pink Princess Philodendron, you'll want it to dry out almost completely. Some of the leaf damage on this plant could also be because I have a tendency to let it dry out, which is not good for it. You know how it is though, you get busy, you kind of forget, but you want to make sure that you water your plant when like the first 2 inches-ish are dry, and then make sure that your soil is fully absorbing the water. If you notice that your soil is becoming too compact and the water is not absorbing into the soil, you may want to kind of like bust it up using chopsticks. You can kind of aerate the soil that way. You can swap out the soil, add a little bit on top, or you can bottom water. Bottom watering is a good way to rehydrate your soil and kind of help with water absorption. So just some things to keep in mind when you've gotten your Pink Princess Philodendron home and it's time to water it. You have your Pink Princess Philodendron and it's time to repot it. I usually don't suggest repotting plants until they've been in your home for about 6 months or so, unless there's something wrong with them. Like if you notice that you get your plant home and you've bought it from a box store and it's got rot, then you probably will want to repot it right away and treat the roots. However, if your plant is healthy and the soil looks healthy and you let it sit for those few months at least for it to acclimate to your home, you notice that your plant is maybe getting kind of root bound, growth is slowed, leaves are kind of getting deformed, you will want to repot it into a chunky soil mixture. So I do like, I want to say it's Fox Farms. I can't think on the top of my head, it's just gone away, but I will tag it down below. It's a really rich soil, very nice. It, on more sensitive plants, can be too rich, so something to think about, but I do have quite a few philodendrons in that and they've done really well. It has a good mixture of soil, charcoal, perlite, bark, all the things. It drains really well. It's very nutrient dense. However, you can mix your own, which I think I'm kind of getting in that era of doing. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of different influencers on Instagram that mix their own soils, and they all kind of have a different take. I think I am kind of leaning towards soilless mixtures these days. So if you don't mind using a soil mixture, I recommend the one that I just said, or finding a way to mix it into other additives to make it more chunky to your liking. Some people add leca, some people add the cocoa chips, some people add orchid bark. It's kind of preference and what your plant does well in. So my Pink Princess Philodendron is still in the original soil, and let me grab a little bit. So it kind of appears to be maybe a soilless mixture. It's got the orchid bark, it's got some perlite in there, it's got some charcoal, and it's done really well in this mixture. So I was on Instagram earlier and I came across a really nice soil mixture. I'm not gonna say all of the stuff that they add into it, but if you want to go check it out, it's at the Plant Patio. But they mix bark, charcoal, perlite, peat moss, and cocoa chips, and it looks like a really nice mixture for any of your thick-rooted plants. You probably could even use it on some of the other plants that you have. I tend to kind of try to adjust my soil as needed to that plant's needs, but for the philodendron, this looks like a really nice mixture. You can go watch their video and see all the stuff they add in. I know they add in some like systemic granules. They also add in some slow release fertilizers, so you can always go check that out on their page. But as the base, I think the base of that is a really good mixture for these plants. It drains well, gives them the moisture they need for their roots, gives their roots a little bit of something to grab onto, and promotes healthy root growth, and allows the aeration in between the roots to prevent root rot. So let's talk about propagation. I feel like I have not propagated this plant yet, but I have propagated other philodendrons. And I feel like this plant would be fairly easy to propagate, especially when it starts to get the nodes and aerial roots that are kind of coming out here. If the aerial roots are long enough, you can cut and plant it directly into soil and seal off the base of the cutting. I know some people will seal it off with just glue or wax. I have not tried that yet. I will typically put my cuttings into water or sphagnum moss and let them get a good like 1 to 2 inches of root before I will adjust them into soil. When adjusting the cuttings into soil, once they're ready, if they're a smaller cutting, I will usually try to put a dome or a baggie on top to trap in the humidity and the moisture to kind of mimic the environment it was in the water or the sphagnum moss, until it takes off and continues to root into the soil. If you have a greenhouse, you could put it in the greenhouse under a grow light to encourage that taking. However, I feel like propagating this plant is like a lot of the other philodendrons. You chop it, you put it in your favorite medium. I know some people use perlite or leca or pon. I'm a big fan of pon, if you've seen some of my videos. And some people do that. They might leave it in the pond, they might leave it semi-hydro. When it's ready, you can always put it in soil in that chunky mixture. So let's talk about some of the things that can go wrong with your Pink Princess philodendron. It's like a lot of other philodendrons where they are susceptible to different kinds of pests. This one, I want to say it's had thrips. I always have a problem with thrips, and I don't know if it's just where I live or what, but I will make a video on that because I might have made a video, I can't remember. I have had success treating them. Your plant will have some leaves that are damaged, unfortunately, but I've had a lot of plants that have had them and have continued to grow and overcome the thrip cycle. So, but they These plants are also susceptible to mealybugs and other pests that you would get on any of your other plants. You can just treat it with neem oil or your favorite insecticide for your plants. I prefer neem oil. I have pests. I don't want anything super crazy on them. I want to say that there's also a brand called Safer. It consists of just like different essential oils that will kill and break down the pests and break their reproductive cycle. If you see pests on your Pink Princess Philodendron, it's not the end. You can most certainly treat it unless you feel like just kind of letting it go. A lot of other influencers talk about this problem, and that is the Pink Princess has a tendency to get its leaves stuck, and it sounds like, based on the people that I have heard talk about it, it's because of the mutation. It's kind of like a side effect. However, a lot of plants will get their leaves stuck if they don't have enough humidity, which, like I said, I don't have really any humidifiers in my house. I will sometimes also, I will add on, fill like a wine glass with like little crystal beads and fill it with water and set it in corners where I have a lot of plants so it can evaporate off into the air. But it seems like even with humidity, their leaves can get stuck. Some people say to just leave it. I will show you the one that I had to deal with yesterday on this plant. If I had left it, it would have snapped, and it had started to snap. So I took matters into my own hands and I helped get the leaf unstuck. This can damage your plant. I have broken off stems this way. So a lot of people will suggest taking a Q-tip, dampening it, and then running it up where the growth is. I will show you in a second. Let me throw on something. You can kind of see where there's a little bit of damage here where it was stuck and it was starting to snap. You can also see kind of here where it's a little bit bent. So I ended up having to kind of break it out of this. You can see where there's a little bit of damage here. It won't affect the plant. I mean, it just is ugly as long as you don't damage this part, which, I mean, it was already kind of damaging itself, unfortunately, but I feel like this is a fairly common problem with these plants. Take water on a Q-tip and run it along where the new growth is coming out to try to soften that, and you can kind of gently work out the new growth. But like I said, this does come with risks. You risk snapping this part off, damaging this leaf in some way, and then your plant's going to have to start over producing more growth. But if you're gentle enough, you can kind of get it wiggled free, and then let it grow on its own. So I know that was kind of a quick video. It will end up being a quick video anyway after I edit it. But I do appreciate you guys hanging out. Let me talk to you about the Pink Princess Philodendron. I recommend this plant if you come across it and you're starting to collect, or if you're further along and you want to add another one to your collection. I think they're beautiful. I love the pink variegation. I'm kind of in my girly girl era, and so I think it makes a nice addition to my office with all of my accents. You can style it really nicely in any room, and I like the contrast between the colors. It's unique. It's not like any of my other plants. I have my pink syngonium, which I'm looking at across the room, and the pink is just so different, so much more vibrant in this plant, and it contrasts with the dark green so much more. I think it's a really neat plant, so if you can get your hands on it, I would. It's pretty easy to take care of. Just make sure that the soil isn't super moist. Make sure that you're preventing root rot by following some of the tips that I gave you. Making sure it has adequate light, putting it under a grow light. I was searching through grow lights yesterday because I would like to put one under I would like to put this Thai constellation under a grow light because even though it gets light here, it's not quite enough. And I moved my umbrella plant across the room, so it kind of needs one too. They have some really pretty, really nice grow lights that just kind of stand by them, but you could stake them in. I was looking at getting a floor lamp that kind of curves over, that I could put a grow light into to put with this one, so it's a little more nice to look at. But there's so many options, so don't be afraid. If you don't have the light for this plant but you really want one, just order a grow light off Amazon. They're so easy to get and so nice to have, that so that you can have your plant and have it be happy and healthy. If you have one in your collection, I'm going to post the thumbnail for this video once it goes up on my Instagram. If you're following my Instagram, I would love to see your Pink Princess philodendrons. If you're not following me on Instagram, then you should go follow me at maddplants, madd.plants, and then show me your Pink Princess philodendron after you follow me. I thank you guys for stopping by. I think I talked about it in my last video, but I'm kind of rebranding my company. I'm dissolving it and kind of starting fresh. So the products that I have, I will no longer be selling, unfortunately, but following my Instagram is the easiest way to see any updates that I may have concerning that. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, subscribe, give it a thumbs up. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks.